it was a systemic psychological brainwashing that was then further endorsed in paper by law, right? So it's psychology plus law, religion, all of those things that are used to ensure that they can change how you think about yourself. And so when they allocated spaces to us, they allocated this barren land, the land in Soweto, the soil itself is unyielding. So it's easy for us to blame our people and say that things are not working, our people are lazy and our people are not trying. We are giving spaces. When you talk about energy, when the land itself is unyielding, it doesn't matter what you put into it. The energy of the space itself is negative. We are the way that we are because the system designed it for us to be the way that we are. It's all about movement. So please, can we not patronize them?
An injury to one is an injury to
all. Maybe a very direct question. Are black people mentally damaged, ill, or maybe damaged is strong? But do we have a mental short or something like that?
I call it intergenerational trauma.
Oh, okay.
And intergenerational trauma is as simple as how genetically it is said that I existed in my grandmother's womb.
Okay.
So when my mother it said a woman is born with all of her eggs. So when my mother was born, I was already in my mother as an egg.
Okay.
So I existed in my grandmother's womb. And whatever energy and whatever hurt and whatever trauma that my grandmother was going through, I would have experienced at a cellular level. That is intergenerational trauma. But it just doesn't end at that DNA and genetic aspect. We are talking about how one experiences life, and the way that they experience life determines how they react to life or how they raise their children, and the values that they impart them and the fears that they impart to their children. So that is carried over in generations. And when Verwoerd designed apartheid and the psychological warfare against black people, he designed it understanding that there would be an impact that can be passed on generation to generation. Okay. So this, we can go, there's a very stark example that I like making. As we spoke earlier about King Leopold of Belgium,
yes.
And how, so just for the listeners, so King Leopold was a Belgian king, and when he took over Congo, he said to the Congolese people, in a month utompa this amount of rubber. Yeah. And if you fail to give me rubber, I'm going to cut an arm or a leg or whatever. And so that became the way that he punished the people.
Yes.
Now, many years later, after the colonialists had said to black people, who are the same people, by the way, when you have a flat nose, when you have a sharp nose, when you have a sharp nose, you're Hutu, when you have a flat nose, you're Tutsi. Yeah. That is literally the defining thing between the Hutus and the Tutsis. When that has
generally told up.
Yes.
Generally told up.
Right. Things, little stupid things like that they used to separate the people. When that war broke out, what form of pain did they use to inflict on each other?
They cut each other.
What is that? They learned from their master how to treat themselves. So over generations, it happened. These ones that were cutting others' limbs did not have their limbs cut, but they knew that the best way to inflict pain, because intergenerationally they understood at a cellular level the impact it would have at a pain level, and they did that to the other people. Intergenerational trauma happens in that way.
Maybe if I can just sit there and ask you, because I hear you using Verwoerd in terms of apartheid, that's policy, right? But did Verwoerd design the policy, or is it something that just comes from
he didn't just design the policy. And when you are saying it's a policy, it wasn't just the policy, it was a psychological thing. They wanted you to think in a particular, it was a way to redesign how you first see yourself.
Okay.
So you look at how they dehumanized you. They stopped and donnered. They would come in, break down your doors, and make you live in fear consistently. They would make you live in squalor and make it normal for you to live in squalor. They make you live in poverty. They make your working for the master like the only thing that you, like your actualization. If you are not working for your master, you have no worth.
Yeah.
So it was a brainwashing of sorts. So it was a systemic psychological brainwashing that was and then further endorsed in paper by law.
Okay.
Right. So it's psychology plus law, religion, all of those things that are used to ensure that they can change how you think about yourself.
Yeah.
And that has continued today because they have passed on the ways of being that were imposed by white standards to today. Even your very I have arrived black person is still reacting to that. Let me show you. When a young black person gets money, what is the first thing that they do?
They want to move to the suburbs.
Proximity to whiteness.
Yeah.
That is the success of white positioning, because we have been taught that whiteness is what we must want to attain. Anything that is white is when we have been actualized. So that's why it has been successful.
Yeah, there's a thing actually from one of the series. I forgot the name, man. Where the series was the moving of black people from Northern Africa, Eastern, to the United States. The slaves get there and they get to live in the States and how. But there's a part there, there's a scene there that just relates to what you're saying. I mean, I saw this and I said, God, that's what's happening around the world, because of the scene says after they've worked in the fields and everything else, on Christmas Day, when they're given a day off, the only thing they want to do is to look and celebrate like the master. The black women will wear all those white long dresses and they will celebrate and dance around like the master does. And I looked at it and I was like, isn't this like everywhere in the world and throughout all the generations, that we define ourselves by their standards? And for me to feel better about myself is when I look closer and closer like whiteness, like white people, and we would want to drive expensive cars and and be. But on the other hand, why don't we want to look like them and own bigger farms? I don't know.
Because it's not possible. It's not because we don't want to, it's because it's not possible.
It's not possible.
It's not possible. I want a farm. Why can't I have one? I mean, I told you I'm in the biotech space. I could do with land to be able to grow the land, to grow stuff in the land, but I can't have it.
Okay, I'm thinking, just Soweto on its own. I know that Krugersdorp and all the other places where there are townships, there could be the same thing. You have vast amount of space that black people would probably say, we're going to use this place and we're going to plant.
Please point me to the vast amount of space. Because Mina life.
No, it doesn't need to be hectares.
Because Mina life, Soweto, all I see is us being forced to live in sardine homes and with no breathing space. I told you I live in Krugersdorp, and every time I step out my house, there is breathing space. There are parks. There is land that is doing nothing, that is just standing there breathing. So please, I would implore you, please show me the breathing spaces.
I'll give you a map.
And please don't tell me about Togoza Park, because that is not it's not even as big as the park that is outside my house. That is just a communal park for 10 people that live in Krugersdorp. So please,
I'll show you blank spaces that can literally be used. We move across Soweto and we use.
Do you know why Soweto is? But even at a land perspective, you see, everything is also about energy. This is what you don't understand. For instance, in Krugersdorp, where I live, it's called the Green Belt. Right? It is the water belt. That's where the water is.
Okay.
And so when they allocated spaces to us, they allocated this barren land, yes, Soweto. The land in Soweto, the soil itself is unyielding. So it's easy for us to blame our people and say that things are not working. Our people are lazy and our people are not trying. We are giving spaces. When you talk about energy, when the land itself is unyielding, it doesn't matter what you put into it. The energy of the space itself is negative. Chinese will tell you about feng shui. These people were not stupid when they allocated us the spaces. They gave us spaces that are unyielding. When you say Soweto eats its young, it's not just Soweto eats its young, because so the energy around it has got that element. So please, can we not patronize my people? We are the way that we are because the system designed it for us to be the way that we are.
Okay, how do we deal with it?
We collapse what we have. It's the only way.
What
It's
does
the
that
only
mean?
way.
How do we even get to that point? Collapsed.
Black
What is what we
consciousness.
have?
Black consciousness. Black consciousness is the only medicine that enables you to see the truth for what it is. The Buddha says you must live in today. See yourself today. Not see your life for what it is, or not for what you imagine it to be. You
Okay.
need to live consciously in today, to wake up and say, these are my circumstances today. And realize that your circumstances are not right. They are not human. They don't have space for you to grow. And then decide to do something about it. Black consciousness enables you to heal yourself, to fortify yourself, to be able to wage the struggle we need to wage. Up until such time as our people's minds are healed, up until such time Black people are reconciled to themselves, they cannot confront the system. So we need something that is going to strengthen us, give us agency, so that firstly we can see that there's something wrong, and then have the agency and the power, the determination to go and fix it. Because no one is coming to save us. All of this that we are seeing is people that claim to stand for us. No one is standing for Black people. Black people must stand for themselves. And up until such time Black people stand for themselves, this is the status quo, and it will pervade. So I'm talking about a revolution, but that revolution will not happen until Black people recognize that what we have been dealt is a bad card, and that bad card is not going away.
I agree. I live it. I live in Soweto, so I see the bad card every day. And I'm saying, what will it take to transform us? Black consciousness, I agree. And I agree to the principle of Black consciousness. But it's the how do we conscientize our people?
Right. It is programs like yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The word needs to get to our people. Black consciousness needs to be, like I said earlier, it needs to be mainstreamed. It needs to be in your education. It needs to be in your churches. It needs to be in our homes, in how we raise our children. It needs to be a philosophy and a way of life, like how it used to be. Because remember, let's go back just a little bit, just to repoliticize this conversation. 1976 did not happen.
Yeah.
By miracle.
Yeah.
Right? Where in the 70s, so let's look at 1975, for instance, in 1974, 1975, the early 70s. There was a lull in the country, the kind of lull that we are experiencing today, where people were beaten by the system. They were tired. The apartheid police and the brutality had beaten them to a pulp. They were afraid. They had gotten to the place where Verwoerd had wanted them, where they were culled in the corner and they were helpless. And Black consciousness came and infused the young people with that spirit of saying, Mara rabona horong, let us do something. So 1976 happened because of Black consciousness. So don't let them fool you. The ANC was nowhere in the country. No one was in the country. It was the youth of 1976, the Black consciousness movement, that actually ignited the fire that led to what we call 1994, the quasi-democracy. So they misused the opportunity created by Black consciousness. Okay. Sorry for another day. But Black consciousness was critical in creating that critical mass of activism. And that is why even today, when we find ourselves in a lull, our people are desperate. Our people need something to infuse life back into them. And the one thing that we know works is to give people agency and a sense of being, for them to understand that they must do something. And Black consciousness is the only way to do it.
Power of people together.